and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Today is Tuesday, July 17th, 2018. And today's topic is why cryptocurrencies soared today. If you didn't know it, cryptocurrencies did indeed soar today. And we have a couple of, well, maybe three reasons. But first, let's take a look at those cryptocurrencies. So for the first time in a while, when we've had up days, Bitcoin was actually the larger performer of the major coins. Bitcoin was up nearly 10% at one point, nearly at $7,500, about $800 higher. Ethereum topped $500, up about 5%. It was the laggard. Bitcoin Cash at $850. Ripple went up to about 50 cents. EOS to about $8.75, and Litecoin topped $90. So very, very big movements in the cryptocurrencies. Over on the gold and silver side, they continue to fall. Silver down to $12.27, down from a high of about $12.45 earlier in the day. And silver went down to $15.54. It was at a high of $15.83 earlier in the day. No news really to report on why the precious metals would have been hit, other than Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, did speak, and he was talking about how the economy was doing well, so that's probably the reason he's talking about rate hikes. So for people who say rate hikes are good for gold, rate cuts are good for gold, everything is good for gold, no, rate hikes generally are not good for gold, because the more you have interest payments available, it takes away the allure of gold. Also, when they tell you the economy is strong, you don't have that gloom and doom buy where you need to, quote, protect yourself against, quote, what's coming. Although, today the office of, I don't know which office it is in the White House, but they said they projected a $1 trillion deficit. I think it's this year or next year. So making no real progress on reducing the deficit, even though they've got tax cuts and supposedly a booming economy with the lowest unemployment, supposed rising wages, and more jobs available than there are people to fill them. None of that is leading to a large amount of dollars coming into the coffers of the United States as the deficit is continuing and projected to continue to explode. Now, let's take a look. Also, we had more Trump hysteria today. Following the press conference and the, quote, treason summit of yesterday with Vladimir Putin, where Trump refused to dress down Vladimir Putin for interfering in our democracy. Well, if you thought yesterday was over the top, continue today. People comparing the Trump summit to Pearl Harbor, darkest days in American history, Kristallnacht, people were horrified. It's a very difficult day, heartbreaking, impeach Trump. Now, if you look at it rationally, no press conference can ever be deemed. Nothing was agreed to, nothing happened. At worst, you could say he misspoke, but that doesn't change anything geopolitically. This whole thing is really about trying to get Trump to admit he colluded with Russians, and that's basically what this whole thing has been about. Now, if you look at it rationally, there's two issues: whether the Russians interfered in our democracy, which they always do, just as the United States tries to interfere in about every other country's internal affairs, just as China does, just as all countries try to interfere in each other's. The real issue this year was that somehow the Russians sat down with Trump and they worked on trying to figure out how to make it happen. So far, there's no evidence of that, but yet that is what people believe, and they see, therefore, they see Trump and Putin up there, the two collaborators, doing it in front of everybody at a press conference. It really is a bit over the top, and we'll just have to wait to see what the Mueller team comes up with. So far, what the Mueller team has done is indicted two sets of Russian defendants that will never be in a courtroom. That is the 12 Russian secret agents and the 12 Russian troll farms, internet troll farms, And then the Paul Manafort indictment, which has nothing to do with Russia and the campaign. And the Paul Manafort, not the Paul, the other guy, Flynn, for lying about a contact that he had made, which was a perfectly legal contact because he was part of the transition team. So this whole Russian thing really has had its own legs. And I don't know how much longer it can go on, but there are people who are genuinely convinced that it's just a matter of time until Donald Trump gets rolled out of office for being a treasonous president. All right, let's take a look now at what happened with Bitcoin today and the cryptocurrencies and why it happened. There was talk that perhaps it had something to do with BlackRock. Now, BlackRock is a massive investment company. I think it has $6.3 trillion worth of assets under management. Now, the guy who runs the thing, Larry Fink, he's no different than Jamie Dimon and Munger and Buffett and all these very, very wealthy people who've made their living off of stocks and banking and being against Bitcoin. And Larry Fink has said in the past that basically the reason people buy Bitcoin is to do money laundering. That's kind of what Munger says. Munger hates gold too. Munger's with Buffett, so Berkshire Hathaway. Jamie Dimon is called Bitcoin a fraud. So all these very, very, very big money men know where their bread is buttered, and there's no money for them in Bitcoin. Now, there are other bankers who see money in Bitcoin, but not them. They're the ones who are at the top of the game where they know that they can manipulate stock prices, they can be on boards, they can get government guarantees to back up their companies. They can't get that out of Bitcoin, so they're not interested in it. Now, this Larry Fink guy, they're saying this is the reason Bitcoin went up today. I don't see it. It goes on the theory that BlackRock is looking into Bitcoin. They've been studying it. Well, they've been studying it since 2015, and Larry Fink admitted that. He didn't really change his stance on Bitcoin. Now, some of that thinking is, well, what if a certain small... There's a bullish Bitcoin argument that when a certain number of institutional investors decide they want in on Bitcoin, there's only 21 million. In fact, to underscore that, Charlie Lee, the creator of Litecoin, sent out a tweet the other day saying something to the effect, everyone should try to get one Bitcoin as their goal because there's not even one Bitcoin for every millionaire there is in the world. And the idea is that if money is going to come into cryptocurrencies, there's really not that much, and that'll send the prices higher. And the idea is that Larry Fink and his BlackRock, with his $6.3 trillion under management, even if a small amount were to go into that, that would send the prices skyrocket. Now, I had done this, and other people have as well, but I had done it with silver, that if even just in the United States, a small percentage, 1 or 2% of the U.S. working force were to save in physical silver, it would overwhelm the silver market and the prices would go skyrocketing. And people have thought about that also in the context of this whole gold triangle and the petro yuan and the idea that if oil producers buy the yuan-denominated oil's futures contract, they can then take the yuan and buy gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Oh, no, they can't do that because Shanghai Gold Exchange doesn't allow them to leave with their gold. Well, they're going to get the yuan and then they're going to go and buy gold with it. The problem with both the theory I espouse, which is if a small percentage of people bought silver with their wages, or if these oil producers were to take the yuan and go buy gold with it, is that there's nothing stopping them from doing that right now. No, U.S. workers can go and buy silver. They don't do it. My point is, if they did, it would be an issue and the price would go higher, but they don't do it. The same with the oil producers. The idea that they're going to take the yuan and go and buy gold, well, they can already buy gold. They get a lot of dollars that are supposedly worthless in exchange for their oil. Also, we see a few central banks buying gold, but we don't see companies buying gold. For example, Google, Apple, Facebook, we had a show on this. We showed how many U.S. treasuries they hold. I think they hold over 100 billion between the three of them, which is more than most major foreign countries, but they don't hold any gold. So the idea that there's going to be this rush into the metals, there's nothing stopping it. So the only reason people would rush into the metals if there was an event And so far, we've had what seems to be events, but the money doesn't seem to flow in. Now, if you go over to the cryptocurrencies, the idea that you would even need lesser of an event because the market is so much smaller. And it's possible. So people were thinking that this BlackRock thing was that, well, maybe if BlackRock's looking at this, they got 6.3 trillion under management. If just 0.001% were to invest in Bitcoin, it would send it skyrocketing. The problem with that theory is Larry Fink actually said in the interview, and I can't believe this, he says, we haven't had any client interest in cryptocurrency exposure. Now, I find that hard to believe. He's got $6.3 trillion under management. He calls it money laundering. I get that, why he would think that. But to say none of his clients have expressed any interest in cryptocurrency, that's almost an impossibility. There's no way that all of his clients are 100% not interested in cryptocurrency. Because anyone with money, I guarantee if you tell them there's a way to make money, there's some interest. And since Bitcoin made a lot of money in the last few years, there has to have been interest. But that, I don't think, is the reason the price rose, or maybe it is. Another one could be the delayed impact of the two bank announcements. The one with Litecoin and TokenPay buying a stake in a German bank with the idea that they would take over the bank. And the other with the Binance exchange working with the Maltese government and other investors to invest to start a bank with $150 million. And that's an even bigger deal than the Litecoin TokenPay bank. So maybe it's the idea there, it's delayed reaction. Those stories have been out for a couple of days, but people are starting to put the pieces together that if cryptocurrencies become part of the banking system through crypto banks owning a portion of it, then they become regulated, and that would attract that institutional investment without people even realizing it. They would have money in the bank and they would have options to get the cryptocurrencies and to have their debit cards loaded with cryptocurrencies. They can invest in cryptocurrencies, and then they can swap their crypto out into fiat and ship it on the Swift exchange overseas. Now, some people would say, well, that defeats the purpose of cryptocurrencies. Sure, cryptocurrencies can act outside the system in a separate ecosystem, but they can also be integrated in the banking system. And I think that's where the banking system is looking at the cryptocurrencies as a way of putting them on exchanges, getting trading fees, getting banking fees, offering crypto services, and so on, and through the know your customer rules and all that, and not really having the same issue that you would have with being in cryptocurrencies outside of a banking system. So I think that's where they're going to be looking at cryptocurrencies. Now, the next thing is, the other thing that might have happened today was, and this was, I think this is a big deal, and this was not really reported. There was a Committee on Financial Services meeting today. Members of the Committee on the Financial Services today at 2 o'clock. And the subject was Subcommittee on Monetary Policy and Trade hearing entitled The Future of Money, Digital Currencies. Let me read to you what it says. The Subcommittee on Monetary Policy and Trade today will hold a hearing entitled The Future of Money, Digital Currency at 2 p.m. Tuesday, July 18th. I think I said today was July 17th at the top of the show. Today is Tuesday, July 18th, in room 2128 of the Rayborn House Office Building. Now, at the panel, they're going to listen to 4 speakers. Dr. Rodney Garrett, who is a professor of economics, Dr. Norbert Michael, who is the director of data analysis at the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Eshwar Prasad, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, and Mr. Alex Pollock, a senior fellow at R Street Institute. But listen to what the topic was. This hearing will examine the extent to which the United States government should consider cryptocurrencies as money. The hearing will examine the extent to which the United States should consider cryptocurrencies as money. Now, that is a very huge consideration. That's not the same as should the United States ban cryptocurrencies and arrest people. It says whether the extent to which, it doesn't say whether, it says the extent to which the United States should consider cryptocurrency as money. Now, you could say the extent is 0, but the fact that they're considering it all is a very, very big development in my opinion. Then it says, and the potential domestic and global uses for cryptocurrencies. The final sentence reads, the subcommittee will evaluate the merits of any uses by central banks of cryptocurrencies and discuss the future of both cryptocurrencies and physical cash. Now, there's a lot in that sentence, too. Evaluate the merits of any uses by central banks. This is the first I've heard of any of the central banks even talking about, of the major, or this is the United States, talking about central bank usage of cryptocurrencies. The second half of the sentence, and discuss the future of both cryptocurrencies and physical cash. Now that leads you to the whole, oh, they're looking at cryptocurrencies as a way of getting rid of physical cash, the cashless society, and so on. Now, my view has been, whether you believe in cryptocurrencies or not, my view has been contrary to most in that I think a smart government, if it wants control, can see the benefit in cryptocurrencies, wants people to get used to cryptocurrencies if they want to usher in a largely cashless society. That they don't want to, they're not going to view this as competition. They're going to try to co-opt these cryptocurrencies. And if they hold them in central banks and they bring them into the banking system and they bring them into the payment systems, for the most part, they will control them. There's been a lot of talk, as we mentioned the other night, about the SEC, CFTC, all of these entities talking about going after bad actors, but then there's an assumption that not everyone involved in cryptocurrency is a bad actor. We want the good actors, the ones that come forward, register their ICOs, go through all the know your customer, keep their stuff in a bank, trade on a regulated exchange. They like that part. That's the part they can control. And that would mean they would make money and then they'd have resources to go after what they call the bad actors. Now, let's look at who these 4 people were that we're talking. By the way, Maxine Waters is the ranking member of the Committee on Financial Services. So, you know, there's a lot of intellectual firepower there. But who is there? So, this guy, Rodney Garrett, he is on the Blockchain Industries Advisory Board. He used to be the vice president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, where he was on the virtual currency working group of the Federal Reserve System, touting that whole what they call FedCoin, yes. Another guy from the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Norbert Michael, he was Center for Data Analysis, the head of that at the Heritage Foundation. The guy at the Brookings Institute, I saw him, and I tried to do some research on these people, but they had one of these round tables where they were saying, you know, Bitcoin can create a more efficient financial system that is more inclusive than we currently have. Very positive statement. And again, it was the same type of statement. He says, we need to balance this good stuff with the bad stuff. So they definitely see the opportunities and they see the risks. It's like a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's how they're looking at Bitcoin. They're not looking at its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and only threats. They're looking at what the benefits could be to how they want society to be, how they want the financial system to be. Knowing that the worst thing that can happen is to have the cryptocurrency ecosystem running parallel and outside of the banking system. Then it's going to be a function of whack-a-mole and chasing down people and banning stuff. I don't think they want to do that. I don't think they have the resources to do that. They lose money doing that. When you ban stuff, it's the same with the alcohol and the cigarettes. When you ban the stuff, it costs you money. When you legalize it and regulate it and tax it, you make a fortune. That's what they're doing with the marijuana and the hemp and all that other stuff now. They make that stuff legal, and then they, instead of spending money trying to outlaw it, they make money regulating it and taxing it. So I see that's how it's going to happen with these cryptocurrencies. So that was the Brookings Institute, the Heritage Foundation, a guy who used to be at the Fed, and there was one other guy. What was his name here? You had Rodney Garrett from the Fed. the guy from the Heritage Foundation. Oh, then Pollock, the guy from the R Street Institute. Now, I don't know what they talked about. I didn't see anything. I'll have to follow up on this tomorrow if there's any minutes on this. But the idea that they're discussing and considering cryptocurrencies as money, the extent to which the United States government should consider cryptocurrencies as money, and the potential domestic and global uses for cryptocurrencies, and then also the merits of any uses of central banks of cryptocurrencies. I will put a link, after these live streams, what I do is I post them, as you know, on YouTube, but then I do a blog post and I try to update the blog post. I put the YouTube on the blog post, but I also include some links and some charts if they're charts that are needed, so you can go and research some of the stuff that I was talking about today. All right, so let's go back and check out the if there's any comments here. But I think those are probably the three reasons, or they could be just because. I mean, cryptocurrencies go up and down, but today was a bit pronounced. I don't know how many people knew about the meeting today with the Congressional Committee. The BlackRock thing was highly publicized. The bank stuff from the Maltese Bank and the Litecoin Bank, those things were well known. It could also be, it doesn't have to be a lot of people know. You just have to have a quote, a few whales that are buying. The interesting thing about when you follow the cryptocurrency market caps and the price changes, they seem to all move in tandem, which is kind of strange. So even when Bitcoin was supposedly being sold by the Mt. Gox bankruptcy trustee, the other cryptocurrencies were going down too. So today was an up day and it's up across the board. The only thing I see that's down today, out of 100 coins I'm looking at, none of them were down other than Tether, but Tether isn't really a coin. It's supposed to be pegged to the US dollar, and Tether was down 0.01%. Everything else was up between 5 and 10%, and when you get down to some of the coins you never heard of, they're up even bigger. Well, Nano was up 13-14%, but you've probably heard of that. But Maker, I'd never heard of, was up 12%. Dogecoin was up 14%. So it was a big day in cryptos. All right, let's get to the comments. C Sigma Show, good day from Oz. How you doing, mate? It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. By the way, you want to check out C Sigma on YouTube. It's a very fine channel. I was lucky enough to be interviewed by him once a while back, but he's got a good channel over there, so go check that out as soon as you're done here. Database DNA. How are the volumes on crypto exchanges today? That's a very good question. They've been very low lately. Today, they weren't that high. They were higher than they have been. I'll give them to you. Litecoin, I think, was about 200,000. I'll give you the exact number right now. It's coming up. Last trade's trading at 89.22. 245,000, which is pretty good. It's not heavy. Bitcoin, 15,000. Better than it's been in the past. It's been as low as like 3,000 or 4,000. So big increase in volume. Not the volumes that you saw, in December and January, but decent volumes, which you would consider okay volumes. The question is whether this is the beginning of another big surge in interest in cryptocurrency, or this is just a dead cat bounce. Who knows? But one thing I mentioned, I try to mention each and every time, what I am impressed with is the dedication that people working on these projects. They don't stop. They don't care that the price goes down. They just keep working on them. More money flows into funding these projects. Yes, there's a lot of scamming going on in the cryptos, and that's what this whole regulation is supposed to drive out. Now, if you drive out the scams, some people say they're all scams, but that's not true, because that's like saying all companies are scams. They're all going to go to zero. Technically, that's true. All companies will eventually go to zero, because there's no company around today that was around 300 or 400 years ago. But an ICO that is basically a company, if it has a decent business model, there's no reason it should go to zero. Most companies fail. Most IPOs don't necessarily do well, and most ICOs won't necessarily do well. But the point is, if you get rid of money chasing really fraudulent ICOs that really don't have a business, just have a blockchain next to it, then more legitimate money can go into the more legitimate or more promising ICOs and established cryptocurrencies. All right. Annabelle, I have some really embarrassing, stupid questions about crypto. I'll try to run them by you later. I don't want to subvert the current topic. Well, you know you do, send an email to me, Smaulgld at Gmail, and maybe we'll do a show on it, or I'll just answer you privately. All right, Annabelle. CRG 7127. Bo Pony released a turn date YouTube video. Stop the presses. Another turn date. Bitcoin July, August. Supposed Bo moves to markets. Well, yes, I'm sure everyone will give him credit for today's move. Game changer, says Pat. I haven't said game changer in a while, but yes, today's movement means Bitcoin to go to $3 million a coin and shock the world. All right. Cryptocurrencies and ICOs backed by government in some fashion become the norm in the coming years. The next fiat currency scheme goes scared. Yes, I actually believe that. I was telling somebody, they said, why do you think cryptocurrency are going to do well? I said, what's the next bubble? The central banks have been trying to find a new bubble every few years. First you had the stock bubble, then you had the .com bubble, then you had the housing bubble, then you had the real estate bubble. You have to have a bubble in order to let off some steam, and the cryptos are the perfect place to do it. Integrate them into the banking system. The best thing about, okay, let's go through why cryptocurrencies are the best bubble you can possibly have from a central bank's point of view. It's a very good question, Ben. The worst bubble you can have is a housing bubble. Why? First of all, you can't get the housing prices that high. You can't get a house to $10 million in a community where the houses go for $150,000 to $250,000. Why? Because most people could never, ever, ever afford them, no matter how much money you lent them, or if you did lend them that money, they'd never be able to pay it back, and they're going to foreclose. And then the banks are stuck with collateral. So the problem with the housing bubble is you can't really get the 10,000% return, 5,000% return, because there's a limit on how high you can push the houses. Also, because there's a physical element of them, you got to foreclose. And then you got to get rid of the people in the houses. And then you got to kick them out. And then what are you going to do with the house? And then you're the bad guy because you're the bank and you've kicked everyone out of the house. And now you own 10 houses on a block with 15 houses and no one lives in them. That's the worst kind of bubble that a bank would want. Stock bubbles are pretty good. Why? Netflix doesn't have to make money. Tesla doesn't have to make money. You just pump that stuff up. If it's $300, why can't it be $400, $500? Oh, it does come to a point where people like in the .com era, they call it .bomb, realize, why do I own this? Why is it worth 400, 500, 600? And then maybe they come to the collective senses and they sell. But when you sell, there's no real carnage other than the digits go away. They become lower digits, but you're not stuck with houses rotting and then you have to maintain them and then you have to kick people out and people are stealing the pipes out of the foreclosed home. But with stocks, there's still a limit, but there's no limit really to the price. So, for example, I couldn't buy a $10 million home or a $5 million home or a $3 million home or $2 million, whatever. I can't buy an expensive house past my level of income and savings. Now, there are cash buyers that buy them, but you can't count on them to buy all the houses. But I could buy Netflix if it goes to $10,000. I can't buy a share of it, but I could buy a portion of a share of it. And so there's never a price where the stock is too high. But stocks are tethered to earnings or revenues or something. But here's why cryptocurrencies are even better. They're not tied to anything. Bitcoin could be $5,000 for whatever reason, and that same reason it could be $10,000. It could be $20,000. And people can justify it being $300,000. $3 million. Why? Why not? There's no earnings. There's no revenues. There's no collateral. There's no way to value it. So they can pump that stuff up as high as they want. And that's why I think they're in favor of it. Look what they ran up to $20,000. How many people made a fortune running up to 20 and then going on a COMEX and buying short contracts on it? They'd probably do it and manipulating it back and forth. They want that thing high and low and high and low, volatility, and it's not like they're going to come out with a bad quarter for Bitcoin. That's not going to happen. It's not going to slow. If they wanted to go higher, it'll go higher. If they want it to go lower, it'll go lower. There doesn't have to be any news. There doesn't have to be any earnings miss or blowout earnings. None of it. So that's why I think that the cryptocurrencies will be part of this whole scheme in the banks, and they'll make money from it. And then, of course, they'll chase it down for when they don't like what bad actors are doing, if they're avoiding taxes, money laundering, etc. But they're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is big money for them. All right, cryptocurrency, we read that. All right. A lot of, Digibyte people, they're good pumpers, I have to admit. I never saw a 1966 Hemi 426, but Digibyte people, they're out there pumping away. They go on to Litecoin on Twitter, and they just pump Digibyte. I don't know anything about it. I'm not trashing Digibyte. I'm just giving them credit for doing a lot of pumping. Because, that's what I'm always looking for is goldpumper.com, silverpumper.com, bitcoinpumper.com, litecoinpumper.com. We got to add digibytepumper.com, Digibyte to the moon, Lambo on the way, Waxcoin, I don't know anything about it. All right. Hubzilla, Hzilla. If Bitcoin was a car compared to a horse, it would take over by storm. But it's not. Expect fiat to linger on for longer than we expect despite its impending storm. There's a mouthful there. It's quite poetic. Here's the thing, though, about cashless. Countries are realizing, Sweden particularly noted this, you never want to go totally cashless. Just like you don't go full retard days in that movie with whatever they said there. You don't go fully cashless because, and it's not because they don't want to track and trace everything. They know that that's the Achilles heel. Because if you get taken over, Sweden's thinking if Russia took them over, they would just grab control of their banking system and they'd have no way of resisting, no way of transacting, no black market, nothing. So cash, you're starting to see a lot of the big proponents of the cashless society talking about near cashless, not totally cashless. They need to have that escape valve. They can't have everything cashless. But when you say Bitcoin compared to a car, I use that analogy myself. And the reason I say Bitcoin will also continue to stay is people in history will always take the faster option even if it's more dangerous. Because a horse, the people used to say, gold is money, period. Gold has been money for 5,000 years. Gold will always be money. Not necessarily. People used to say horses are transportation, period. Horses have always been used for transportation. Therefore, horses will always be used as transportation. Horses have been used since the Roman times to pull chariots. And in Roman days, people used gold. Gold could buy you a suit. Today, you can buy a suit with gold. Okay, that's all true, but things do get superseded. Horses were the perfect transportation. You can control a horse. A horse was a beautiful animal. You fed a horse. It wasn't very dangerous to ride a horse. Sure, people get thrown from here and there. But when the car came along, cars were loud, they were polluting, they were dangerous, and yet people adopted the horse. Same with gold. Gold is prettier, it's shinier, it's got more properties. It has properties. Bitcoin doesn't even have properties. But it's hard to transact in gold because no one does. They don't want to walk around with 3 pounds of gold in their pocket or silver. It's easier to transact in digital coins like Bitcoin, like credit cards. They're not better inherently than gold, not even close. There's no regression theory that you can say, well, people always wanted Bitcoin. No one wants Bitcoin. There's no point in Bitcoin. There's no reason you would have a Bitcoin other than for speculative value to go up or to use because it's cheaper to use, it's convenient to use. But people held gold for other reasons. Same with a horse. Although people did become in love with their cars. There's a Queen song to that effect. But most people had an affinity with their horse. The horse was more than just transportation. Could be a connection with the family. You have the family horse. You have a stream of horses. You take care of the horses. They're just like you appreciate your gold. You appreciate your horse. Car is the machine. It's like Bitcoin. There isn't anything there. It's just it works better. It's faster. When they say it's digital gold, it's not. What they should say Bitcoin is a way to transact fast and cheaply where people agree that there's some value in sending those bits across the internet. That's what Bitcoin is. It's not digital gold. It doesn't have any properties that anyone would like or anyone would want. All right. Let's see. 1966 Hemi 426. Almost anyone from around the world can invest in crypto. It's exciting times. Well, you know, that's true, though, with gold and silver. That's true with stocks. Anyone from around the world can invest. Jack Howitzer, platinum at 10-year lows. Any thoughts? I've been following platinum for the longest time, from when it was more expensive than gold. The thing about platinum highlights the point I make all the time when all the people are telling me the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable. The gold-silver ratio should be 16:1 because silver is almost as rare as gold. Silver may even be rarer than gold. The idea of relative rarity has nothing to do with, or can have nothing to do with, value. Platinum is mined at a rate 12, 13 times less than gold. Platinum is clearly rarer than gold. Platinum has some very useful properties. It's even more dense than gold. It's good in the cars. It's an okay looking jewelry, but the Japanese really liked it. Then they didn't make as much money. They stopped making money like they made in the 80s and 90s, and they stopped buying it. So the demand got cut out. So platinum also doesn't have a monetary history other than, in the 18th century when they first discovered platinum in Russia, they did make some kopecks out of it, but it wasn't really in circulation for more than 20 or 30 years. It was never widely a monetary metal. And so if you missed last night's show, we talked about the difference between gold and silver is there's still a monetary use for gold, and that central banks hold it. Silver's been totally removed from the monetary system. Platinum never was in it, not the international monetary system. So now you're left to jewelry. And I'd have to say, if I've seen platinum, gold, and silver jewelry, and platinum's not very good looking. It's gray. Silver's better looking. Silver's cheaper. If I had to buy, I don't wear jewelry. If I had to buy jewelry, and I saw the price tags on the platinum and the silver, I'd buy the silver jewelry. Obviously, for most people, gold is what people want. Most people want, not everybody. Some people do prefer silver. So platinum then is relegated to no financial or monetary value, some jewelry value, and one of the reasons people liked platinum was because it was more expensive than gold. So if you were a status-seeking person, you'd want the platinum ring, not the gold ring. It was always the highest level, on the American Express card. Remember, they used to have the silver card, the gold card, and the platinum card. Well, the platinum is not worth as much as it used to be. Palladium is worth more. And then the other thing is platinum was good for catalytic converters. And the reason platinum has gone down is because they're saying that the diesel car, very big in Europe, where they use platinum for the converters, those sales are going to go down. They project them to go down. And now they're projecting also the increase in electric cars, and therefore platinum will be in less demand. So I don't make any recommendations on it. I always thought it was a good value, and it was 1-to-1. Now it's like gold is like worth almost 1.5 times the price of platinum. So who knows? Also, the platinum market is not very liquid. Go to coin, you don't see it very much. There are platinum ETFs, but people don't talk about them. And I guess it's the same with palladium. Brian Grant, Bitcoin is an antique like a Model T. Deserves to be in the garage on blocks with a tarp over it. Maybe pull it out for a parade. And I think that's right. But when you look at Bitcoin without segregated witness, without larger block sizes, and without the Lightning Network, that is true. But I think it's adaptable to not being an antique, just like gold is an antique for purposes of being a currency. However, put that gold on a blockchain or do like gold money does, do as a debit card, and it moves out of the garage, off the blocks, tarp comes off, and gold can be used once again as a very suitable currency. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Putin calls out Bill Browder, 400 million Clinton donations And that was quite interesting that he just did that. His father, Earl, is head of the U.S. Communist Party and a spy recruiter for Russia. Yeah, I don't know. That story I don't know. And I read Browder's version, which really wasn't a version. He just said, Putin wants to kill me, and I didn't send $400 million to Clinton. So who knows what's going on with that? I didn't follow that story. But I'm sure it has some significance. Here we go. Silver is the most undervalued asset on the planet. Its day will come. Well, people have been saying that for decades. The silver pumpers have been saying that for 10 years. They're convinced. And there is a silver cult in the United States with these YouTube channels. I'm not going to name them. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. That silver is rarer than gold. Silver is so useful. Silver is most useful in our lives. Without silver, we couldn't live. Without silver, heck, we couldn't even have the internet. You couldn't have Bitcoin without silver. Silver is so useful. They are finding more and more uses for it every day. Therefore, silver will go to 10 to 1. Then silver will be equal with gold. Silver is worth $10,000. Please buy my coins and my book. First of all, you could say copper is very useful. Copper is extremely useful. It has so many uses. This idea that silver is some type of mythical, magical metal that everyone in the world just hasn't figured out over the last 10 years. Silver has been the worst possible investment for the last 10 years than anything. Anything. You could have invested in Beanie Babies probably. If you look at the charts of just about any asset, just about any commodity, silver is the worst for 10 years. And yet, the people that promote it still keep saying, silver is a smoking deal. Silver is so useful. Silver is going to skyrocket. And it's always just around the corner. There's a reason silver is cheap and was pocket change. I'm not against silver, and I think it is a good price right where it is now. But this idea that the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable, it has to go higher. That's just echo chamber. People repeat it. They hear it. They hear somebody say it with conviction on YouTube. Then another channel repeats it. Silver is rarer than you think. All these stories, they're all pumping the silver story. And most of them are selling silver or selling a silver newsletter. But yet, they have their followings. They have their sales. And people, what they do is they get people like 1966 Hemi 426 to repeat the story. And if you hear it enough, just like in Goebbels, the propaganda, it must be true. Silver is the most undervalued asset on the planet. It has more uses than anything else in the world. We could not live without silver. Yes, silver is in most medications, lifesaver for health. But you know how much silver is required for that, Pat? Not very much at all. Not very much at all. The idea you have to know how much silver is used in these applications. The other thing, silver is so useful. Electronics are booming, and people are going to be using more solar panels in the years to come. And the demand for silver will explode. And as we talked about on other shows, the amount of silver used in electronics was 310 million ounces in 2010 and 230 million ounces in 2017. The amount of silver used in electronics has declined. Why? The devices are more plentiful, but they're smaller. Also, solar panels, same thing. They've actually, through a process called thrifting, used less and less silver per solar panel. So you can have a doubling of solar panel production and use, but if you have a 70% thrifting, you'll use less silver even though you've doubled the solar panels. But silver is going to skyrocket because of solar demand. And there's lots of use in electronics. And they are finding more uses every day. Buy my coins. All right. Sorry about that, but that's... I don't know. Our day will come. That's just a belief. You know, then it becomes a belief system. Our day will come. You've been believing it. You've spent the time to learn about it, to listen to the gurus, them to tell you the stuff, to cherry pick data, and you believe it. And now you have to believe it because you've had the silver for all this time, and you need to believe it. And silver is going to be as rare as gold. And silver will set to skyrocket. We could not live without silver. All right. I'm heavy on the silver side. All right. Database DNA. Just because there are silver pumpers doesn't mean people don't buy, hold it for insurance purposes. That's true. However, I would say that the silver pumper is basically sold that you're going to get rich quick. Most of what appeals to people emotionally is not, well, you know, you want to have a little portfolio insurance. You want to have a proper blend of some gold bullion and some silver bullion stored somewhere in a vault that's insured. No, silver is set to skyrocket. Silver is rarer than gold. The gold-silver ratio is unsustainable. They put the stars in your eyes. Silver is ready to skyrocket. Yes, you can and you should think about precious metals as a hedge, as insurance, but most people don't. This "our day will come" means silver is set to skyrocket. Look at the titles of some of these silver YouTubes. Silver 100 when gold goes to this, or you know, they're always talking about these mega predictions about whether it's going to the moon. They have their own version of Lambo with the silver. Gold has never had the same pumping as silver has. Silver gets pumped because supposedly silver is just so undervalued compared to gold that it's just destined to happen. If you look at the chart for the last 7 years, the gold-silver ratio is basically gone straight up. 7 years. Yeah, one day silver will go higher, and I always say it goes up every 30 or 40 years. It spikes. It went up in 1980, then it fell down and was in the wilderness for 30 years. Then it spiked again in 2011, and it's done nothing since except go down to $15. All right. It's a proven form of exchange without technology. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong, but that's not why people buy it. If someone told you, oh, buy silver because, you know, if the lights go out, your Bitcoin isn't going to work, your credit card is not going to work, silver's a perfect medium of exchange, it's worked for 5,000 years, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that statement. But also consider, how long will you need to transact in silver, if ever, and at all? I mean, should you go out and buy like 40 bags of junk silver because of that possibility? That's not what you do with insurance. You don't insure that much. No, I think most of the silver pumping is they give you some of the rational reasons, but most of it's the hype. That somehow it's dramatically undervalued and it's the most precious thing in the world, and that the rest of the world hasn't figured this out yet. In the last 10 years, they just haven't figured it out. All right. Yeah. You know, Pat, you should start a, because I don't get into this Masonic stuff, not because I don't know much about it. Pilgrim Society, Illuminati, the people who know more about it than I do. The reason I don't discuss it is I don't know anything about it. I'm sorry, I don't know much about it, and it doesn't factor into my analysis. However, if you've got facts that factor in, I'm happy to hear them. Annabelle, had to wander off. Hope I didn't miss much. Well, if you didn't miss anything, this gets uploaded afterwards, and you can go back and listen to it. Here be wisdom, says Walden Tree. I don't know what that means. Eli, while silver is low, would you buy a tube of ASEs or a tube of trusted generic rounds? I discussed this last night. This isn't investment advice. This is just factual. The American Silver Eagles are sold on the basis by the U.S. Mint that they charge $2 over the price, the spot price of silver, to its authorized purchasers. And there's about 12 of them. And then the authorized purchasers then resell them to where you might buy them from. Maybe SD Bullion, BGSC, Money Metals Exchange, APMEX is actually an authorized purchaser themselves. So when APMEX buys Silver Eagles, we'll use them, and the price is $15.55 right now, they're going to pay $17.55 for a Silver Eagle. The problem with paying $17.55 is the $2 surcharge that APMEX is paying amounts to a 13% premium right off the bat. And APMEX isn't going to charge you $2 over spot. They're not going to sell you that coin for $17.55. They're probably going to charge you 18 something. So you're going to pay 15-20% over the spot price of silver just to get a Silver Eagle. Now when you go to sell that, the dealer is not going to give you $2-3 over spot. They're going to give you spot or 50 cents. So when the price of silver is lower and that $2 charge hits the American Silver Eagle, on a percentage basis, you're getting hosed. If the price of silver goes down to $10, they're still going to charge $2 over a coin. You're going to pay 20% APMEX, and they're going to mark it up, and you're going to pay like a 25% premium. Well, now you need the price of silver to go to like $14, $15. You need a 50% increase almost to get back to where you were. So when the price is low, I would just say if you're just looking for silver appreciation, you want to pay as low as spot as possible. Now, when the price is $50 and the American Silver Eagle is only charging $2 per coin, well then, you know, you're looking at a it's a much smaller percentage, like 4% charge on your coin, and it's not that big of a deal. But when the price is low, the American Silver Eagle is not a bargain. So what people do, they want to buy American Silver Eagles because some places don't trust generic rounds. They trust the American Silver Eagle. It's the most recognized coin. You buy the predated ones because what bullion dealers will do is they'll buy pre-2018 coins instead of getting them from the authorized purchaser for $2.25. They will buy from their customers American Silver Eagles at, let's say, 50 cents over spot or at spot. And then they're able to sell them to you at less than $2 over spot to you. So that's one way to, if you're just looking to get silver, you can buy the pre-2018-17 Silver Eagles, the used ones, but they should still be in good condition for less. But if you're just looking to get the most silver, obviously at a $2 plus premium on the newest ones, it's not worth it unless you think there's some numismatic value, which I don't think that there is on the Silver Eagle. All right, let's see. Did I answer your question, Eli? Brian Grant, today's blockchain will be a quaint memory when trusted exchange networks take over the road. Yep, you never know where all this is heading. I mean, if you think about it, Bitcoin is kind of inefficient with this mining and the amount of energy it uses. The Bank of International Settlement calls it an environmental disaster, even called it evil. So, yeah, there could be other types of digital currencies that are better. Pad. Yep, that's true. Well, Pat, I invite you. You could start a channel and you could talk about Masonic this and Illuminati that. And, you know, I'm sure there'll be a good audience for that. You know, there's only so many things I can cover. People ask me, I cover this, I cover that. You know, if you're going to cover something, you have to know it. This is why I can talk off the cuff about gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies, because I've spent a lot of time with it. I used to be able to do the same with real estate. But just to throw any subject at me and ask me to talk intelligently about the Rothschilds and QAnon, I don't follow that stuff. That doesn't mean that it's not valid. It just means I don't know as much about it to go on every night and talk about it. And I'd rather just talk about what I know. Yeah, yes, best price is random date. Yes, the random date, really the backdated random date ASCs. My local coin shop doesn't pay spot for rounds. They sometimes pay lower a bit. That's right. But they also aren't going to pay $2 plus for an American Silver Eagle. So you have to think on the buy side, what's the lowest price you can get? But on the sell side, what's the highest price you're going to get? You'll always get more for the American Silver and the American Gold Eagles than you will for the other generic stuff. But I think when you're paying for brand new stuff, when there's that $2 surcharge no matter what, very hard to beat that. Database D-Day. Didn't you tell us to send your show topic suggestions? Yes, of course. But if you ask me to cover knitting and sewing, it's a nice suggestion. I just can't do it. So I'm more than open to topics, but they have to be something within. I mean, who would want to hear me talk about something I don't know anything about? I can make up stuff, but the idea is that I only know certain things, and there's certain things I don't know much about, and I don't think it would be a very good show to listen to me talk about something that I don't have much of a grasp on. So I think one of the things Database DMA sent to me, and this is somewhat up my alley because he wants to know what I think of the hemp industry, and I haven't researched it, so I'm not going to start talking about it right now. But that is something that does interest me because it's an alternative investment. It does touch on economics, but that's going to take me some time to get fully up to speed. I'm aware of the industry tangentially. I haven't read the legislations. I've followed a bit what Sessions said, what Trump said, but I don't know it well enough to do a show on it. Too lazy to do? That's right, Pat. It's not that I'm too lazy to do the research and not willing to start. I'm too busy with a lot of other things. There's stuff I know about stuff that you don't know, that if I asked you to go and look at, you wouldn't have the time to do it. I'm not interested in Illuminati, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, that whole element, Zionism, all that stuff. I don't do that stuff. If you don't like that, then there's plenty of places, plenty of channels that discuss that stuff. It doesn't factor into my analysis. So it's not a function of lazy. It's a function of how much time do people have to study stuff. If you think that's the most important thing to learn and you want to learn it, then share your knowledge. I can't share knowledge that I don't have, and there's only so much knowledge I can possibly acquire that I can talk about. AB, once you get away from gold-backed currencies, you indeed have entered the realm of voodoo economics. I don't think that's true. I don't, but we'll have to talk about that offline. Brian Grant, what other points in history was there this kind of currency competition? It's a very good question. Generally, I mean, if you read Hayek, he talks about currency competition. If you read, what's that other guy? Herman Hoppe, whatever his name is. He thinks that's nonsense and there should just be a gold standard. But I actually think currency competition is a good thing, but governments don't like competition. That's, they want to put out the fiat that they run and the monopoly fiat. In the early history, what they used, if you remember, they used the silver dollar, but they didn't make the United States didn't even have a mint in the early days. They used the pieces of 8. That was a silver unit of account. I call that the first world reserve currency because you could use that, and I think they were legal tender in the United States long after the United States had its own mint and issued its own coinage. Did Franklin print local script? I think he did. And then also, the South was called Dixie because of the Bank of New Orleans. Well, what's interesting was the Bank of New Orleans actually, I think it was 1863 or 4, there were Confederate coins made with an O on them, and then the feds took them over. Don't know as much about that, but very interesting. I love that stuff, monetary history and what people used as money, and especially in the United States. There's a lot of YouTubes that I've done on the Smaulgld channel about the Pittman Act and about the silver shortages when they didn't have enough silver for coins, and why you had low mint dates in the 1920s. So that stuff I really am interested in. So in your opinion, the rounds were a bit better than the random ASEs. Depends on what you pay for the ASEs. If the dealer at your local coin store is buying them for spot and selling them to you 50 cents over $1, that's not bad. But if you have to buy a new one for $2, so it depends. I really can't say. It depends on what you have. I don't buy them, but if I were trying to acquire silver, I would probably want to get the ASEs at the lowest price rather than generic stuff, just because some people don't want the generic stuff. And if they say, well, you'll always find someone to buy it, they'll melt it down. But some people don't like rounds that just have stupid stuff on them that no one knows what it means and why it's on there. I saw a random tube of ASEs for $3.50, but I can buy the rounds at $3.38. $12 difference. I can't do the calculation in my head, but that's not... The random ASEs might be a better buy than that one. All right, well, we've been at it for an hour. I want to thank everyone for joining me. I send out mugs today, which means I probably won't send out the Smaulgld mugs tomorrow unless I get a slew of orders. I'll probably wait to go to the post office on Thursday. So if you're interested in a Smaulgld mug, a Smaulgld Classic, or a Smaulgld Super Classic mug, I'll send you the link right now and you can order it, and I will get those out to you. They come with tracking. Shipping is included in the continental United States. It's a way you can drink your coffee or play drinking games every time I say game changer. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Every night we do this at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And remember to go and look at the website, because I'll have links to those stories that we covered today about the hearing that they had in Congress today at the subcommittee, and also there's a couple of videos of the people that were at the committee. You can hear their thoughts on what they think of cryptocurrencies.